Hi, everybody. So today I wanted to talk to you about the color-sensitive casting. Now, there's a lot of terms about colorblind casting, and I'm seeing a lot of things online where people are taking Hamilton as an example to just cast however they want. So they are casting white actors in Asian roles. They're casting Mexican actors in black roles. Their casting has become kind of kaflooey. Now, this is mostly in the regional theater in the United States. I think other countries are being a little more sensitive to it. The United States is large, and there's a lot of theaters. And there's a lot of small theaters, and their excuse has always been Hamilton, Hamilton. The concept of color sensitive casting is when you're really looking at who you're casting and making sure it works with the story and the world you're creating. So let's take Bridgerton. I think Bridgerton is wonderful. I think Shonda Rhimes is wonderful. But there is a lot of criticism that the time of when Bridgerton is happening is ignoring the rest of history. So if you don't know Bridgerton, it's basically, there's so much more to it, but it's basically what if the King of England married a black woman to the Queen? And they're using all the same names as from history. Um, and then to balance out society, people that were already, doing well were now brought into society as far as being part of upper society. They probably were upper society to a level, but upper. Okay, now that's a very, very rough estimate of Bridgerton. I'm going to link Lindsay Ellis, who talks about Bridgerton and the problem. So the concept is with the real names and the real sort of history, and then the other parts of the story that come in, are we just ignoring the fact that Bridgerton is happening with a black queen and all those black folks in society? And in history, this is also during the transatlantic slave trade that England was a part of. It never comes into Bridgerton's sphere, into their world. And I think that it's just the way this world is. Is it an alternate universe? No, it's a what if universe. And you just have to go, this is the story that's happening. Not everything in history is happening in this version of the world. Okay? So we just have to go with that. The problem is the when you look into theater and you start applying those same rules. So I'm thinking of the criticism that happened when Audra McDonald took on Mama Rose in Gypsy. So, in the scheme of things, she's an excellent casting for this role. It's still a musical we want to see, and the the performance was stellar. But those nitpicky people were like, "Well, it's all great. She's very good." I guess so because there certainly is a history of black women in entertainment in the United States. And this makes sense with this story of them being this troupe of performers that goes all around the States and her being in charge and her forcing her daughters in to perform. There's always been a lot of black entertainment in America, always. And the problem that the nitpickers get to is when it comes to the actual historical part of one of the daughters becomes an actual person that lived, Gypsy Rose Lee, the stripper, who was a white woman. And so now, whoever they cast in the role, whether she's dark skinned or light skinned, they get all wrapped up into that. It's very strange. And they get very strange about, like, well, Audra McDonald is a dark skinned woman, very beautiful. And the woman they chose as the daughter is too light. Stop it. Look at genetics. Stop it. You don't know how that kind of stuff works. There is no father seen in Gypsy. We don't see the father. We don't know the background. Look at genetics, okay? Different colored people can come out of different colored people, okay? Parents and kids don't always look alike. Skin tones, so forth. My family is basically all UK and Ireland, and we have a brother that actually tans. I don't tan at all. And we always were like, "You're adopted." It was very mean. "You're adopted. You have black curly hair and you have olive skin. Who are you?" Mean. Because the rest of us are glow in the dark white. So don't start bringing genetics into it with casting. You don't know. And yes, you need to buy into Audra McDonald is this character. Yes, it makes sense with the real history of performers, black performers in the United States, until you get mad when it comes to the actual performer that was a real person looking very different than this actor who's now doing that role. Really? They thought about the casting. The story works. The story really works. When you have a particular story, color sensitive casting needs to be put into play. Not every show is the same. You can't use Hamilton as an excuse to just colorblind cast in every show you do. Okay? If you've seen my videos before, you know that when people do Othello, I really don't like it when they just have one black actor in the show. And they say, well, it's about Othello and it's all about racism. It's more than that. It's more than that. It's about being a narcissist and being an opportunist and the evil of Iago. And it's also about Venice. Venice as a city. It's much more about that. Venice is an international city and it's always been that way. So if you're doing it as a period piece, did you never hear of the Moors in Europe? Did you ever go to Spain and see the Moorish architecture? Who do you think they are? Just Spaniards? Yes, Spaniards. Spaniard mixed with North Africans. Do you think all those North Africans are just these Arabic people? No, they're mixed too. So there were people that were traders from Africa in Venice. Everyone traded with Venice. So the idea of Othello as the only black man in town, and that being the crux of the problem, and it's just about racism, you're not looking at the whole story. What is happening in your story, in your play or musical, and how will this work? I've seen musicals where there is, like Oklahoma. I've seen Oklahoma with various people, which people say, oh, that doesn't make sense. Oklahoma and that story is white, white, white. Oklahoma has a history of people of different colors being shipped there from other states. So Oklahoma has a history of indigenous Americans, Indians, Native Americans, whatever the term you're using is, being shipped to Oklahoma and being given the worst land. So why not have indigenous people in that musical? Okay? But you have to be careful where you put them. You can't have the evil people as the people of color because historically it's Oklahoma. And then you start getting into a whole can of worms where you're like, so they were shipped here from other states and now this one's evil? What? What are you doing? So color sensitive casting. You can't just go in and not research the whole play and start to realize, now this person I put into this role is in this storyline where the people that look like them are being persecuted, but they have no opinion about it to their partner who's doing the persecuting. Do you see what I mean? I'm thinking of a specific instance in Othello where it was a mixed cast and it all got discombobulated how people were now observing Othello being tricked and they were saying nothing. So the other black folks and other people of color in the cast were observing the manipulation of Othello and they weren't doing anything, they weren't saying anything, they weren't talking to him. And other musicals and plays like that where the person being persecuted was now a person of color that they thought was evening things up. And the other people of color that are witnessing this don't do anything to warn them. It just doesn't work. You have to look at your whole script and make sure it works. And if you want to be historically accurate, then you have to look at that region and go, the world we're creating, Doesn't work like that. This is a historical play. We're going to be historically accurate, but we're just going to throw anyone in there of any color and just let the chips fall where they may. So I'm also thinking of a Hamlet, where Hamlet was a redhead, but his mother, not his stepmother, his mother was black. Now, I'm very happy both actors both got these good roles, but it's a whole different story in Hamlet if she's his stepmother. Do you see? If it doesn't make sense in your mind, visually, really doesn't make sense, and it's presenting you with a different story, and now the meaning is off, you have to watch that. You have to clock that and go, I can't go this direction with it, okay? There are all kinds of stories where if you adopt a child, it works. Go with those stories. If there's no one related to anybody else, and we're just in sort of a comedic thing, and race and color doesn't come into it, then you should mix it up. Please mix it up. Please put a variety of people on the stage. The world is a much smaller place now, especially with modern stories. Everyone's living everywhere. You know? Everyone is involved everywhere. And if you think, well, it's a period piece and there were no black people in Venice in 1600, do your research. That's just crazy. You don't know. All right? Please do your research. Please look at these things. Please cast sensibly. Please stop casting narrow-mindedly, okay? But do your research. You'll have a much more successful show, a much more successful audience participation. They're going to come back for their shows. And if there are things that come up with criticism against you, say, historically, you don't know what you're talking about. Obviously, be nicer than that. But it's what I can think of right now. Historically, this is accurate. This is the way we want to do this show. This is the way we want to present this piece, especially if it's a fantasy piece. This is the way we're presenting this fantasy. It's a fantasy. I'm also thinking about when I did a show about fairies, and they criticized me about the color of my fairies. They're fantasy characters. I'm going to cast all across the rainbow of people on Earth. You can't come for me. They're fantasy characters. They're fairies. Stop it. Stop it. Okay, that's my 2 cents for today. Please tell me what you think in the comments. There might be a lot of angry comments. That's okay. I welcome the discussion. All right? We will talk again. Please subscribe. I need subscribers. I'm getting a lot of views, which is great. I need subscribers. All right. Thanks. Talk to you later. Bye.